This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Friday, January the 16th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams producing the Come On With It edition. So, if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. Good game last night at the Mary Brown Centre. The Newfoundland Regiment hosting the Rimouski Oceanic skated off to a 5-1 win, including a goal from local Ben Vitch. They get to see if they can sweep them tonight to extend their home winning streak to 7 games. So good game last night. Enjoyed that. All right, meant to mention this yesterday, but here we go. It's not too late. Congratulations to Bay Roberts native Dawson Mercer. So hit a career milestone the other night with his 100th career assist. So I know I mentioned it to someone yesterday. Said, well, not really a big deal. It kind of is a big deal. He's never missed a game as a pro. Knock on wood. And now 100 assists is a nice milestone. So congratulations to Mercer. And also congratulations to everyone who was a recipient of one of the Premier's Athletic Awards that were given out yesterday. Pretty fun award for young athletes to receive. So congratulations to you all. And good luck to the men's curling team from Memorial University competing in the AUS Championships this weekend, Fredericton, New Brunswick. They're the defending champions. So it's Team Perry. So it's Simon Perry, Nicholas Codner, Braden Snow, Carter Holden, and the coach is Glenn Goss. Good luck to them. They're at the Capital Winter Curling Club, defending champs. All right, so price of fuel up. Just less than 5 cents for gasoline, around 4 cents for diesel on the island and in Lab West. Furnace and stove oil increased by less than 4 cents a litre. Propane dropped by 0.5 cent. All right. So I heard Brian Callahan in the newsreel here this morning speaking with Premier Tony Wakeham yesterday at the Premier's Athletic Awards, sneaking a couple of questions about some of the news of the day. Asked specifically about removing the provincial portion of HST from the power bills. Not much in the way of a direct answer was forthcoming, but didn't say he was going to. You know, it's worth a bigger conversation. So even if it was means tested, people with a certain income bracket get that kind of relief. It would cost the government in and around $60 million to do it. So not a huge chunk of change. And even if it was just focused on the winter months, because you hear the stories, I'm hearing dozens, maybe even hundreds of stories about power bills. And we're happy to take those types of calls here this morning because the stories we hear and the whopping big increase is amazing. So it's not just a dollar amount. We also, when assessing our bills, probably should have a careful look at usage. And keep an eye on your own meter to make sure that what's being reflected on your bill is accurately portrayed with your meter. So the high power bill conversation is not going away anywhere, including yesterday when we spoke to the province's consumer advocate, Dennis Brown. Not only talking about needing more from Newfoundland Power and the concept of setting up a dedicated phone line or helpline, not so sure how much that would achieve, but also goes on to talk about the potential and, in his estimation, the need to move to smart meters. Let's look at what's happened in recent past in other parts of the country. And let's use our neighbours in Nova Scotia. They moved to the smart meters, and they had some initial big problems with it. For starters, there was a cyber attack that attacked the personal information of folks using a smart meter that were paying their bills to Nova Scotia Power. It was a huge problem. Somewhere in the neighbourhood of 280,000 customers informed by letter after the fact they had their personal information compromised. And as a result of the cyber attack, Nova Scotia Power for months on end was simply estimating the billing. A huge swath of the paying public were getting estimated bills that were much higher than their actual consumption. So it's something to consider when we think about the need for or the possibility to move to smart meters. It can be very helpful for the consumer to optimize your power usage. It can be helpful to the utility with the need to adjust to peak demands, what have you. So I think it would change some of our habits insofar as when we turn on the dishwasher or the washing machine or those types of things. But Nova Scotia had a problem with theirs. Not to say we can't move that direction, because of course we can if the will is there at Newfoundland Power. Also, Brian Callahan, speaking with the Premier yesterday, asked a couple of questions about the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding. So we know the status of the negotiations is pretty much at a standstill. He did ask about whether or not there was a question for the referendum yet to be considered. And the Premier said it's too early for that. I'm not so sure it's too early for that. I mean, they have got to have some concept of what the referendum question would be and whether or not you actually think it's a good idea. But he continues to reiterate that it doesn't matter who's at the other side of the negotiating table. And look, let's be honest, regardless of what party you support, it does matter who's at the other side of the negotiating table. For the obvious reasons, every time you negotiate with anybody, it matters who you're negotiating with. Because there's going to be a huge difference in negotiating with Premier Legault and the new CEO at Hydro-Quebec, which has also changed. He used to be Michael Sabiat, no longer. Of course, he's clerk of the Privy Council. So it does matter who's on the other side. And some people are worn out with that conversation, but there's too much on the line. Whether or not you think it's a good deal or bad deal, your opinion is welcome. Had a caller yesterday on this particular subject saying if there was a referendum today, he'd have to vote no. Why? Because he said that he doesn't know enough about it. I would like to see more information, maybe an easy-to-digest one-pager, and maybe we can also do that with risks associated with it. So that was his own comments. He'd have to vote no because he doesn't know what's in it. I got plenty of buddies who are pretty smart cats, and when we entertain a conversation regarding this, many of them say, I don't know anything about it. Some of them say, it's not my job to worry about it. And others say, well, how about 50 years? And how about risk? And how about borrowing? And how about authority given to Hydro-Quebec at Gull Island and all the rest? So I think there's a lot of confusion out there about it still to this day. But let's talk about it. All right, the moves at Memorial University. Talk about needing to get it right. You know the story, the infrastructure deficit in and around $481 million. Some 40 jobs were eliminated, so says CUPE at Memorial University last year. The restructuring at the executive level from 7 VPs down to 3 VPs. And yes, the tuition freeze. Dr. Janet Morrison, the president at Memorial University, reflecting on the tuition freeze. Okay, there's a couple of things. It's one of the key streams of revenue for the university, as we all know. There has been a drop and a cap put on international student visas, which has jeopardized revenue at Memorial and universities right across the country. So what's the likely outcome here? Memorial University does indeed have plenty of autonomy, so the province can indeed implement a tuition freeze, and there's a huge, hundreds of millions of dollars are transferred from the province to Memorial University, which has two budgets, one for the medical school and one for the rest of the university. Given the fact they've got to try to overcome a $20 million deficit this year, and the elimination of those VP jobs is a savings of about $1 million. So what do we think the likely outcome is here? It's going to be recouped or recovered, likely, in the increase in student fees. So it's the same catch-22 we found ourselves in for over 2 decades with the tuition freeze in place. Is this going to work the way the Minister of Education, Paul Dint, thinks it will for the students and how much they pay to the university? Because as I've said many times in the past, yes, it's important to break down this fee, that fee, campus renewal fee, tuition, but the end number on the check that you write or the money you transfer to Memorial University is the biggest part of the equation. And so a reduction or a freeze in tuition that's recovered with an increase in student fees, not so sure how much further ahead the tuition and fee paying public are at Memorial University, but there you go. Hearing worries from Grenfell campus as well about their autonomy. They lost their VP. They now have a deputy provost that will represent not only Grenfell but the Labrador campus. So especially if you're on the West Coast, if you'd like to chime in here, please do exactly that. A story we've spoken to a couple of times this week is about dog owners or pet owners, dogs in particular, with being off-leash. And the story was about one little 4-year-old pug named Winston got killed when got caught in a beaver trap. Then there's a story up in Happy Valley Goose Bay where a Labrador retriever got caught in a trap, was able to be rescued. Winston, the pug, dead. So, look, a couple of emails that really felt pretty cold, but this is the paraphrase of what they said. Is if the rules are, and they are, that you must have your dog on a leash if it's not on your own personal property, then it's the dog owner's fault. That seems pretty callous to me. Look, the rules are clear. I get it. You're supposed to have your dog on a leash. But I don't know what the big problem is if there's just a requirement for some signage to be put in place to give pet owners, dog owners in this case, just a heads up that there are traps set in the area. So, yeah, it seems like an awful sentence of death just because your dog was off the leash on one trail or another. So the combination of rules and the combination of common sense are sometimes lost in the shuffle, but I don't know where the hardship is with having to put a sign up if indeed you've set a trap. your thoughts, more than welcome. I read this story here. All right. So this lady, what's her name? Lisa O'Driscoll. A no-show yesterday for her sentencing once again. She's been presenting fake IDs and credentials to get work as a nurse. And not once, more than once. All right, so the question would be, and I don't know this woman, I don't know what her state of mind might be, but there's something desperately wrong here. On top of that, the health authority really needs to do a better job, whether it be at the clinic or hospital level or at the personal care home level, to really vet and understand exactly who's applying for a job, to ensure that they are who they say they are. You know, for the beginning, to even want to present yourself with fake ID and fake credentials to work in a healthcare setting is bizarre. I'll just use that particular word. But the folks doing the hiring, people can't sneak through the system like that. It's too important. These are people hired to help and support and to treat people who are in a very vulnerable situation. So that was a no-show for sentencing yesterday, and I don't know what the punishment will be, but fake IDs, fake credentials to become a nurse or LPN. On that front, let's see if we can expand the nurse practitioner program in full across the board, province-wide, for the billing to be done at the MCP level versus cash out of pocket. And also, I wonder where the government is on allowing for MCP to be billed for all of the beds, specifically in this case at Vita Nova. So the addiction story and the path to recovery conversations we've had on the show this week have been very interesting, enlightening, and I would imagine in some corners inspirational. A couple in particular that I think really made a difference in how I thought about it, but your thoughts. All right, a few quickies before we get to you. So today, many people in the country will be awaiting the ruling from the Federal Court of Appeal as to whether or not the Liberal government unlawfully invoked the Emergencies Act. And of course, we know that was declared the convoy protest that were happening in Ottawa for weeks on end. The appellate court has been reviewing the federal court decision that said government's 2023 decision to apply the never-before-used law was unreasonable and infringed on the charter rights of those who were protesting. So we've had this conversation many times. There's a lot of bad faith included in that particular convoy protest, but okay, we'll see what the Federal Court of Appeal has to say today. My question will be, you know, even with the federal court in the beginning, they were even using the quotes of the benefits of hindsight, which is one of the key issues for the Federal Court of Appeal to consider, whether or not the benefit of hindsight is a real pragmatic measure in measuring whether or not this was unlawful. Right from the beginning, the day after, I said, it's going to end up being a mistake. As much as people in Ottawa wanted this to happen, as much as many people across the country wanted this to happen, was there an actual threat to national security? So we'll hear the ruling today. The next big question will be, what happens if? What happens if they uphold the federal court ruling that it was unlawful? Then what? Is there any sort of punishment that's forthcoming for then Prime Minister Trudeau? I have no idea. But the ruling will be one thing, but the aftermath of the ruling is going to be a very interesting exercise in the authorities associated with the federal government and as to whether or not they're going to, in the future, have a standalone ability to invoke the Emergencies Act, or whether there's going to be another mechanism, a la the courts, to be involved in consideration of whether or not the government can or should invoke that never-before-used piece of legislation. So anyway, if you want to take it on, we can absolutely do it. Okay. This one here, I've brought it up a couple of times, but it's getting a lot of conversation and consideration, is the proposed legislation called Bill C-9. Okay. So this is anti-hate stuff, all right? So what it says pretty much, and a lot of the protections are part of the Charter that's already in place. So this does not usurp it. And basically it's the potential to codify into the criminal code things that have already been ruled on at even the Supreme Court level of Canada. So there's a few court cases. You don't need to know the exact names, or maybe you do. It's the Crown versus Kegstra and R v. Watcott. All right. So what it says, and this has been consistent court rulings over the years, that if you portray a group as dangerous, subhuman, evil, or deserving of harm, encourages hostility, contempt, or dehumanization, goes beyond debate, criticism, or moral judgment. So what hate speech is not included under Bill C-9 is it does not say you cannot quote Scripture. That's one of the things floating around that some people, including politicians, are leaning in on, but that's not part of it. It does not also include things like moral disagreement. You can disagree all you like. You can criticize other people's ideas, other people's behaviors, other people's ideologies. It does not does not rule or overrule your ability to offer your thoughts. But what you cannot do is to engage in promoting harm or dehumanization or hostility or contempt because of your religious stance. So I don't know a whole lot that's going to change here because, again, these things have been ruled upon at the Supreme Court level. And so court rulings are one thing. To be codified into law is a different thing. So we're just look, the worries that have been expressed in some corners are part of a church community conversations. But when things are as contentious as issues regarding politics and religion, I think we're all best served if we break down the actual facts as opposed to some of the exaggerated worries that have been voiced by some people. Again, court rulings. Just from my perspective, politics doesn't belong in religion, and religion doesn't really belong in politics. Because people have different levels of faith or morality. So that's sort of the approach that I think politicians and governments should take, but your thoughts are welcome. Some updates coming from the Prime Minister's trip to China. So apparently there's been some level of deal struck. The Chinese, of course, wanted a removal of the 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. So some of that has happened. Canada is going to allow 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into the Canadian market at 6.1% tariff rate, which will increase into the future. China is dropping the tariffs on canola down to 15% by March. China's the biggest importer of canola. Canada's the largest exporter of canola. The concept of we're selling out to the Chinese, people, to a woman, to a man, were talking about the need to diversify trade markets. We found ourselves in quite a predicament when all of a sudden there was the huge reliance, which worked for all three countries inside of CUSMA. Things have changed. So yes, of course, with the amount of our GDP contributed by trade with the Americans, we've got to get a deal. But we can't just get a deal for the sake of. It's a similar conversation to we can't just sign a deal with Hydro-Quebec for the sake of. We've got to get the best deal we possibly can. And we had a good deal. And through bad faith, it's been torn up. And whether or not the renegotiations are going to go anywhere, we'll see. But some forward progress insofar as trade. And yes, the Prime Minister did say the biggest concern in this country regarding foreign interference comes from the Chinese. And it's true. Add the country of India, add the Americans, add the Russians, but that's basically where we are. All right, a couple before we get to you. I see the lineups. I don't live in Alberta any longer. I didn't see it up close and personal, but the opportunity now for folks who are interested in separating, they're able to sign the petition. The Premier, Daniel Smith, has lowered the threshold. They need to get 178,000 signatures to trigger a referendum on the possibility. A couple of things. So one of the key separatists, this guy Jeffrey Rath, he has said with his own words, and he's part of what they call Alberta Prosperity Project. He's saying that apparently they've got some sort of alignment with the Parti Québécois. Given how many negative things they say about the Parti Québécois and the province of Quebec, that is strange bedfellows to say the very least. In addition to that, he said yesterday out loud that they've got support from the U.S. State Department. Talk about foreign interference. Holy smokes. He's saying the quiet part out loud. In addition to that, a lot of this is about the oil and gas industry in Alberta. Alberta's oil and gas industry has doubled production since 2010. The past couple of years, record production, record revenue, record profit. And at the same time, the oil and gas industry has found a way to do more with less. 10,000 jobs were lost in the oil and gas industry last year. Now, still, some 148,000 people working in Alberta are working in the oil and gas industry, but are all these factors playing in? I only think and talk about it because we have a lot of baked-in relationships with Alberta. How many people here have spent time living in or working in Alberta, including today? So I'm not so sure all of the big headlines have been factored into the separatist movement, and I hope it doesn't happen. I hope the country remains whole. I'm hoping there's a way we can find to be more unified. There was a semblance of that when the whole tariff issue kicked in, but let's get back to that. But imagine, the Alberta Prosperity Project says themselves they've got an alliance with the Parti Québécois and the U.S. State Department. And at the same time, what is the long-term prospects, even for Alberta's oil and gas industry? It's huge. It's about 27% of their GDP. It's about 3% of the national GDP. But You know, let's hope that all the information that needs to be considered is part of the conversation as opposed to simply hating Quebec or the East or whatever they say. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show to wrap up the week. That can only happen one way. You and the Q to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go ahead. Welcome back to the show. Just to add to the China-related trade issue, and this more pertains to this province, not only we talk about canola, but lobsters, crabs, and peas no longer subject to Chinese tariffs from May to the end of the year, so that would have an impact on our seafood industry. Let's begin this morning on line number one. Say good morning to former broadcaster and represented the Liberal Party as the candidate in the most recent federal election out in Terra Nova, the Peninsulas. That's Anthony Germain. Good morning, Anthony. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty, and I want to thank your producer for inviting me to be on the show this morning. And I know it's a bit late, but I want to wish you and everybody at VOCM a very happy New Year and all the best in 2026.
The very same to you. Thank you, Anthony.
Where would you like to start?
Well, I did my own bit on Bill C9 here this morning, and questioning legislation and questioning government is always pragmatic and required, but it really kind of gets to me when some things that are so important and so emotional get mischaracterized. So I saw your post regarding Jonathan Rowe, who is the the Conservative Party member for Terra Nova, the Peninsulas. Where would you like to start with what you saw from Jonathan Rowe?
Well, I guess the place to start, and I heard your preamble, Patty, and what I really liked about it was your insistence that we need to stick to the facts. And so if you'll just allow me a minute to kind of frame how I think this issue is important with C9, the heart of this issue is about closing a loophole. We have a very strange gap in our hate speech laws. Essentially, someone can say something truly hateful, but if it can point to a religious text to back it up, they might get a pass. And the law refers to this as a good faith exemption. It's created, I believe, a very large gray area. And there is no question over the past couple of years, more Canadians are looking over their shoulders. We've seen a rise in anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, transphobia, and a lot of Canadians don't feel safe. But the question about this part of the law, this good faith exemption, is how do we actually tell the difference between good faith, a good faith belief, and somebody using a holy book as a shield for something which is genuinely malicious and harmful. So let's say somebody says something that I think we all agree is heinous, something like these people should be exterminated. The law should not be hamstrung just because somebody tucks some kind of religious scripture underneath it. So this is not about targeting religion, as Mr. Rowe would have people believe. It's about making sure that extremists can't hide behind the altar to encourage any kind of harm. And you referred to the current legislation. There's no question. It's about the fact that if you are spreading identifiable hate, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or homophobia, you should be held accountable, period. But if you listen to Rowe and the Conservatives, you'd really think the sky was falling. They've taken this really outlandish position, in my opinion, that the government is trying to criminalize people of faith. And I've got the invite to his Clarenville meeting right here, and he's telling people that if Bill C9 passes, you could face criminal charges just for quoting the Bible. And to put it plainly, Patty, it's completely untrue, and this is deliberate disinformation.
You're right. It's not true. If I just go on to social media and I pick a quote out of the Old or New Testament and simply send that out as a standalone message, nothing happens. Nothing in your world is going to change. There'll be no repercussions for it. But, it does come with, it's a tricky piece of legislation, because who's going to be the arbiter as to whether or not what you've said actually deems any criminal punishment? So I get concerns on this front. This is a lot of... Pardon me, go ahead.
Rightfully so. And back to your preamble, that is an issue of debate and contention. There are many parts of this bill that are, I think, subject for genuine debate. And I think the Conservatives miss an opportunity here to talk about, okay, how will the police use this? What does this mean for individual freedoms? Instead, they've decided to say, if you quote a psalm, you might go to jail. That's not what this is about.
No. And again, I think the important part of this conversation is these issues have been determined consistently in the courts, as high as the Supreme Court of Canada. But there's a difference in looking at case law versus codifying things into the criminal code. So whether or not people think this is the right piece of legislation, it has the right intentions. It's how it's going to be utilized, I think, is a absolutely fair debate. But we have to be the starting point of that debate has to be based in truth and in fact, not in exaggerated words and not in complete mis or disinformation, which unfortunately is part of the conversation.
Yeah, now you referred to the charter in your introduction, but I'm telling you, the hurdles that you have to sort of take into consideration when you look at Jonathan Rowe's to me, outrageous claims by telling people they could face criminal prosecution for just quoting a sacred text. He's ignoring three massive legal hurdles. One, Section 2A protects your right to express your faith and your religion as a fundamental freedom. That's number one. But also the legal threshold, you referred to all the court judgments. Canadian hate speech laws, the language, and this is recognized internationally, the barrier and the bar are incredibly high. You have to be, and I'm quoting here, willfully promoting extreme hatred or violence. Quoting a verse during a sermon or a study is nowhere near that line. And the other thing about Bill C-9, which Mr. Rowe never mentions, is that it's also designed to protect religious communities from intimidation. So if a bunch of protesters have a problem with Muslims, or if a bunch of protesters have a problem with Jews and they conflate the issue in Israel, they are not allowed to go and block those places of worship, right? So the aim there is to keep those institutions open and free and not to arrest the people inside them, as Mr. Rowe would have you believe.
It's true. There's four key measures therein. An intimidation offence prohibits conduct that is intended to provoke a state of fear in another person, to impede them from accessing religious or cultural institutions in specified places. An offence that prohibits the intentional obstruction of people's lawful access to such places. A hate crime offence to be more explicitly denounce hate-motivated crime. And an offence that prohibits willfully promoting hatred against any identifiable group by displaying in any public place certain hate symbols or terrorist symbols. That's the basic breakdown of the four most important components.
And I didn't really want to get involved in this whole thing, but what really got to me, and I saw this during the campaign, is that what they're hanging this on is they found this committee exchange where Minister Mark Miller was discussing a very specific legal loophole, that religious exemption I was talking about. And the fact that if someone is charged with willfully promoting hatred, they can go and say, okay, well, look, my religion, my faith says this, and my good book says this. And Miller's point was, if a person uses a text to call for extreme violence, for example, these people should be exterminated or put to death, that is not good faith religion. It's just hate speech. Plain and simple. So the actual argument Miller was trying to make, you shouldn't be able to use a holy book as a get-out-of-jail-free card when you're inciting real-world violence. And the Conservative and groups like Canada Proud have taken this clip of Miller mentioning specific verses, and they stripped away the part where he was talking about prosecuting hate crimes. So they've reframed the conversation to make it sound as if the government was auditing the Bible itself. So instead of, we want to stop people from using religious text to justify murder, Mr. Rowe is telling the public, we think the Bible is hate speech and we're coming for your pews.
Yeah, and then again, back into the grey. So calling for someone to be exterminated because of their faith or colour of their skin or what have you, of course, is already well understood hate speech. But how do we evaluate a social media post, for instance, or a memo or a letter that says, X does not jibe with Canadian society as I know it? That you're going to be allowed to say that kind of stuff. It might indeed be based in xenophobia or racism or transphobia or whatever, but you're still going to be able to say those types of innocuous things. There's a long way between that and saying that you should be killed for who you are.
Right, and there's the other, part of the other thing in C9 is that, displaying swastikas or terrorist group emblems, that's going to be criminalized. There are certain libertarians who believe, if I want to march outside a synagogue in St. John's with a swastika, that's okay. If I want to march with a sign that says "Death to Islam" outside a mosque, my right to free speech shouldn't be impeded. But we have long had a very different approach to this. I can't go. You know the old argument, Patty. I can't go into the cinema in the Avalon Mall and scream fire in a packed place. Right? I have some responsibilities if I'm using my free speech, and this to me is what's really important here. You can't say anything you want, right? And I think that's a problem that some people have. I think most reasonable people know that, and that's why I find Mr. Rowe's claims here really contentious. And as I said, it's completely untrue, it's false, and it's a deliberate disinformation campaign.
I appreciate your time this morning, Anthony. Thank you.
All right, Patty, all the best.
Take good care. Bye-bye. Look, we should, in a healthy democracy, be debating every piece of policy, every piece of legislation as we see fit. But what becomes an unfortunate reality is there's a lot of bad faith in some of these conversations or debates. If we debate exactly what's in the legislation, fine. If a question comes up, who gets to be the person that determines whether or not what I've said actually violates the criminal code? There's a fair conversation therein. But just bare accusations of, if you quote scripture, you're going to jail, it's not true. It's just not true. So I'm happy to get into every working part and every moving part of government and government policy and ideology and attitude and societal implications as you see fit. Your contribution to the show is most welcome, whether it be on Bill C9 or anything else under the sun. Let's get a break in. When we come back, we're talking crab, childcare, and whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let us go. Line number 3. Chris, you're on the air.
How you doing, Paddy?
Doing okay. How about you?
Oh, not too bad.
Good.
I've listened to your show for a long time. This is first time caller.
Welcome.
My grandson started crab fishing there the year before last. He's just turned 20-year-old, so I'm not familiar with the crab fishing the way it works. But apparently they get 2 layoffs. They get like a summer and a winter, they call it. So when he signed up back in August on his supposed to be his winter claim, I'm thinking that's what people are telling me. When he put it through, whoever done it for him, well, knows who done it for him, right? Like, he just tried to open out. He ended up signing up on his summer claim when he's supposed to use his winter claim. The 2 layoffs are the same. They're the same many weeks, like the same money. There's no issue with the money wise. So when he signed up on his Emerald, it's supposed to be his summer claim. He signed up on his summer claim again, not knowing that he already had his summer claim claimed up and he's supposed to use his winter claim. So I called the EI, right, and I made 3 phone calls. First 2, I couldn't get no satisfaction. They said, you got no hours. I said, you got to have hours. You got 2 layoffs. So then he said, we got no record. So I goes to Abba Grace and drops off his summer claim and drops it off to the unemployment office so they can send it in right away. And I wait 3 days and I calls back. Now this time when I called, I got a good guy. He understood the fishery. He knew exactly what he was talking about. He went and checked on his claim for me and he said, what's on the go here, he said. I got his EI, but when he signed up, he said he signed up on his summer claim when he's supposed to sign up on his winter claim, and then he tried to sign up on his summer claim again. And right now, he said, what pissed me off the most was he said he went and looked, he said they just throw it on the back burner, and he said there's nobody even looking at it. I said, well, he never got any phone call saying what was wrong with his claim, which I think he should have had a phone call. So right now, is there anybody in the fisheries? He got 5 weeks in there with no EI. Is there anybody in the fisheries? Now, the fisheries guy told me that he's going to fax it off to the fisheries, but they got to look after that now, and they contact unemployment. But is this a long process, months or 2 months? Is there anybody in the fisheries that could call me back and let me know what's on the go?
Well, whoever's the inshore council rep in your area, you should contact the union on that front for a little bit of guidance. In addition to that, if it's based on employment insurance, then a constituency assistant or your member of parliament's office is the second call I'd make. So those 2. There's got to be an inshore rep for wherever your son or grandson is fishing. So those 2 calls, I think, would be the next if it was me.
Yeah, I wouldn't know the number. So you guys got my number. So if anybody's listening, I'm sure someone have had this happen to them before. They'd be able to say exactly what department to call, right? Okay.
If anyone gives me any information, I'll be happy to do it. What part of the province are you calling from?
Bay Roberts area.
Okay, so your member is... Your member...
Dan Parsons, I guess.
No, that would be... So that employment insurance, you'll need your federal member.
Yeah.
I'll get you some numbers. So if anybody has some guidance as to what next steps should be, but I'd call the union, get the insurance.
I really think it should be, the fisheries should get into the unemployment office and, sit down and, not sit down, but figure out, I think if the 2 claims are the same and you screwed up on the first one, no one ever catch you, why can't you just take the second one and sign up? Because 2 of them is identical. You draw the same many weeks, you draw the same amount of money. Have you got to wait 2 months to get this straightened out, or can you get it straightened out in a week or 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it shouldn't be this difficult, but like many things in dealing with the government.
No, and this is the 20th century, right? They should have this start off, I'm sure it happened to other people. They should have just set up in a way that, okay, he put the wrong claim and he put his summer claim in instead of his winter. So why can't he just take his winter layoff now and go directly and send that one to the unemployment office and let that one go through? Because 2 was identical. They were 26 weeks, what I'm understanding. So you draw the same amount of money out of it. They're just 2 different layoffs. Or give the boys the 52 weeks right up front and no second time it's climbing up.
Yeah, I know the processes are there for a reason, but when the claims are identical other than the actual season, winter versus summer, then we're making things unnecessarily difficult. It's the issue with the governmental bureaucracy, right? It's a monolith and it's sometimes extremely difficult.
They never caught it when he signed up back in August. They didn't catch it when he signed up. He used the wrong one. And why can't he just use the other one now? Why is that set up that way? That it's so easy for him to do. Just take the other layoff, send it into the unemployment office, and they just put that fall through. Because apparently, my buddy mine's fishing, right? Like you said, 2 of us for the same time, the same many weeks. It's not like one is you going to get more money than the other one. It's just a piece of paper with numbers wrote on it saying you fished.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
I get it. I appreciate your time. Give the union a shout. They should absolutely be able to help you out.
Yeah.
They should.
Hopefully someone is listening there now that could put me in the right direction there.
Hope so. Appreciate the time.
Okay,
Good luck,
thank
Chris.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Let's keep going. Let's go to line number 1. David, you're on the air. Hello, David. On line number 1.
Hello.
Go ahead, sir. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you. Go ahead, David.
I'm calling this morning. And on the topic of my wheelchair.
Okay. What's the issue?
I've been having trouble with my wheelchair for a year, and actually, it goes beyond that. My first wheelchair was giving me trouble, and they wanted to run me around to fix it. But this chair that I have now, this is a brand new wheelchair. I've only had it for not even 11 months yet. And it's been trouble from day one. It's been jumping up and down in the front. It's been jumping side to side. Like when I'm pushing or when someone's pushing me, the right tire on the back seems like it pushes the chair up in the air and drops. And then the same thing happens on the left side as you're sitting in the chair. I contacted my social worker countless times on this over the past 11 months. And, yeah, we'll send someone out. We'll send somebody out. We'll send somebody out. People come out, take the chair, and go back to wherever the heck they go to fix it. And within no time, they're back. Oh, there's nothing wrong with the chair. We can't find it. This has been going on, Patty, for a year.
David, is it
almost a year?
Is it a motorized wheelchair or no?
No, it's manual.
Okay. So there's a couple of...
Anyway, so what happened after that was then they started sending people over to my house and telling me the same thing. Nope, there's nothing wrong with your chair. We can't find it. So, yeah, and like I said, this has been a year, and now the last email I had from my social worker was, I'm going to send OT over, get her to look at it. Basically, Patty, what they're trying to tell me is it's all in your mind. There's nothing wrong with the chair. You just don't know what you're talking about. That's the impression they're giving me. While I was waiting yesterday, I had a phone call from my MHA assistant. They're going to see what the hell is going on, and they'll see if we can either get the chair fixed or get a new one.
Okay. So, I mean, Eastern Medical Supplies, for instance, they can have a look at your wheelchair as well to make sure that it's in proper working order. So I know that happens. Yeah. There's a loaner program through Provincial Income Support Assistance at the governmental level. There's a loaner program, the Canadian Red Cross, for adaptive equipment, including wheelchairs. So if I was you and you have the capability to see if someone at Eastern Medical Services, as opposed to an occupational therapist or whoever comes over to have a look at your chair, so that might be an option for you.
That's who comes over, Eastern Medical. And that's who comes over and looks at my chair, is Eastern Medical. And they say, no, there's nothing wrong with your chair. Basically, like I said, they're trying to make me think that it's all in my head. And I've been around people when this have happened. So it's not only my word. You know, I've got countless other people that have actually seen this, and still nothing is done. I mean, what's going on? This chair, like I said, has been trouble from day one. So I'd like to know if I'm going to get a new one or get this one fixed, or what's going on.
Yeah.
To date, I haven't had, my last email I had from my social worker was December 27th. I haven't heard from her since.
Well, other than the Red Cross, or maybe the Hub is also a place where you might be able to turn for, another look at your chair, or maybe to get a different chair. So between the Red Cross, Eastern Medical Supplies, and the Hub, and your social worker, someone should be able to help sort this out for you. Why don't you give the Hub a call, Dave?
I probably will, yeah.
Yeah, give the Hub a call. Ask for Tom.
I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, and I'm frustrated. And, I need this chair. But I'm not using this chair because it's trouble. And I don't want to get thrown out of my chair. I don't want my chair to get so bad that it might throw me out of my chair.
I understand.
And land me in the hospital. You know what I mean?
David, when you hang up with me, call the Hub and ask for Tom, and see what advice he can give you, because they deal with adaptive equipment like this all the time.
All right. Thank you, sir.
And let me know.
I will.
Okay, thank you, David. Good luck. All right, let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 6 and say good morning to the president of Sharp Management Wetland Treatment Solutions. That's Glenn Sharp. And good morning, Glenn. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you today?
Great today. Thank you. How about yourself?
Very good. Patty, we wanted to announce that we've transferred $100,000 or over $100,000 now to the towns that participate with our engineered wetland designs for sewage treatment in selling carbon offsets on their behalf and transferring monies back to the towns of Stephenville and Appleton Glenwood.
Before we get too far into it, I think there's plenty of confusion as to what exactly a carbon offset is. So just describe in basic terms how it works.
A carbon offset is when you can achieve the same result, but do it with a reduced carbon footprint. And the difference in the carbon footprint that you manage to save can be quantified, verified, certified, and it's a long process. But then with certified achievements and savings in the carbon reduction, you can take that forward and achieve a carbon offset. And then you can sell that to individuals and companies that wish to reduce their carbon footprint, not being able to do it themselves directly, but they can purchase a carbon reduction that we achieve, and that way achieve their own carbon reduction.
So to talk about cancelling out your own carbon footprint, the question I've heard posed many times is, does this simply remove greenhouse gas emissions elsewhere to compensate for your own hopes, but hasn't actually reduced GHG emissions? Overall.
Well, it has reduced carbon emissions overall. Yes, that's how the program works. So let's say, just take a very basic example. You own a company in Newfoundland and it's in the transportation business. You can't stop your trucks driving, your fleet running and burning that fossil fuel. But then you could purchase carbon offsets from Sharp Management, and that way reduce your carbon footprint by using somebody else's offset that's been created to cancel on your books. This program was initially skeptical by lots, but when David Suzuki endorsed it as a way that people could take action themselves without doing what, eliminating the trucks on the road, let's say, but they could take action and it could be done elsewhere. The overall reductions are still achieved for the planet, so it's a way of transferring the ability from somebody that can make a reduction over here to the left to somebody that would like to make a reduction but can't on the right.
There's lots of talk about carbon capture. There's actually 3-year, $6 million here at Memorial University to examine carbon capture. Here we're talking about re-injecting carbon back into depleted oil wells, for instance. Same thing out of BC, injected into the basalt rock formations. Then in 25 years, the carbon becomes basalt rock. So is carbon capture, like Pathways Alliance, is that a carbon offset that can be purchased or sold?
I'm not sure of that situation because that's not what I deal with. But the overall concept is probably yes, but there's very specific rules around this. And each individual situation and each individual activity is looked at, and they create regulations for it. So in our situation, we're doing wastewater treatment for towns. It needs to be done, whether you do it through a mechanical treatment process or through something like our engineered wetlands. And where our wetlands don't use any electricity or moving parts, there is a carbon footprint savings. So we're doing the same treatment as other treatment systems, but we're doing it at less cost because we're not using electricity or moving parts, and we're reducing the carbon footprint. So in our case, we're allowed to take that, quantify it, and then sell that carbon offset.
Does it have to be a permanent solution for it to be verified?
Yes. Yes, it has to be verified and certified by special accountants that are assigned to do this work. It can't just be something that somebody says, I think I've made a savings here. So there's a very rigorous process. We actually register our carbon offsets on the Canadian CSA registry. Now, we're having to be in the volunteer market, which is the lowest revenue stream for the sales. If our province would continue with the regulations that they started in 2016 when they regulated the big polluters, to allow the regulations to be created, to allow the volunteer market to sell into the regulated market, our revenues would move up 5 times. The big polluters or the offshore oil and gas projects, IOC, hydro generation, not hydro, but Newfoundland Hydro with their generation station and so forth. So there's a group of 8-10 main polluters. We currently can't sell in that market until the regulations are put in to allow our certification to be reviewed, and then we could sell into a market which would generate 5 times the revenue because the price is regulated and set at a much higher rate, and that would make our returns to the towns to be 5 times as much as this. Over 100,000 now we've transferred. That could be 500,000 if we just had that regulations in place.
And that's an important point. And this question is not about your organization, but is there some sort of registry of carbon offsets to ensure that they aren't sold multiple times?
Yes, that's one of the requirements of all carbon offsets, and so we're registered on the CSA, the Canadian Standards Association, where they go through a process as we sell a carbon offset. We deregister it out of the program so that you can't resell the same carbon offset.
I really appreciate your time and the work you're doing, Glenn. Thanks for doing it. Anything else quickly?
I'd just like to say to everybody out there that you can do things to reduce your carbon footprint, whether you own a small company or a large company or just an individual. You can take the initiative to reduce your carbon footprint. If you can't go out and actually reduce it by reducing your car or your flight or the heating of your home, you can purchase carbon offsets by reaching out to Sharp Management, and we'd be happy to work with you as a small company or a large company or as an individual to purchase or start to purchase some carbon offsets. You don't have to offset your full carbon footprint. You can start small and offset 10, 15, 20% of your carbon footprint, and we can help you with that process.
I appreciate your time this morning, Glenn. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for having us on, Patty, and you have a good day.
The same to you. Bye-bye, Glenn. All right, there we go. Let's get a break. And when we come back, we're talking power bills, childcare, cell service, whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go. Line number 2. Chris, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how are you today?
Not too bad, I suppose. How about you?
Good, good. Thank you for asking my very strange question to Dennis yesterday.
No problem.
So I want to follow up on that a little bit, because I spent the week learning about how Newfoundland Power predicts the weather. And so there are kind of two ways that this shows up on our bills. They estimate demand, and then they have a running expectation of what they expect the weather to be. And on a year when it's too cold, so when it's colder than average, we would actually get some type of credit back, because they would say, oh, we've actually charged you too much, and so we owe you some millions of dollars, and it's generally millions. Sometimes it's as high as $6 million in overcharges. Sometimes it's the other direction. Sometimes they would say, you haven't paid us enough, and so we would owe them an extra $6 million or whatever it is. A very complicated financial mechanism, but it's all based around how warm or cold they expect it to be.
It's a little bit more than that too, right? Like in the rate stabilization account, we all actually got rebates there. I'm going to say the number used, the $6 million, that was, I'm going to guess 5-6 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer, where we actually got a rebate. And it's not only necessarily only about cold, it's also about rainfall, snowfall, affecting hydro generation. So higher purchase power in the dry years, lower costs in the wet years.
Well, so there are layers. So the rate stabilization account is where our debt and credits end up. And at the moment, I'm pretty sure that account is up to $70 million in additional debt that we owe to Newfoundland Power. And they are charging us interest on it. That interest is around their capital expenditures, so it's like 5.5% or so. And it's kind of the reason that they requested last year, or the year before, to raise their total profits. They had asked for this bump to 9.6%, and in filings they were like, look, we don't have the cash on hand to cover our expenses, and if we don't recoup this money somewhere else, we're going to need to take on new debt. And so that was all in 2024, and we kind of got to read the filings later. But so that account is accruing interest at the moment, and it does have a number of different pots that go into it, like you said. So it's like different types of debt that is stacked up. And, weather might be, millions that contribute to it, whereas the whole pot is up to many tens of millions of debt now.
Yeah, well, I mean, even when I asked the consumer advocate, Dennis Brown, about it yesterday, a fellow who's pretty intimately involved in the understanding of the utilities here in the province, he even said he'd have to get one of his experts to try to explain it, because it is pretty complicated. I went then further to try to have a better understanding of it, and I'm still pretty confused.
So here's my best read on the situation. So if we look at 2024, they're saying that we didn't pay them enough in electricity, and they are getting, inverse. It's really strange, because they always get their rate of return. So if it's too warm, it's kind of like a heads they win, tails we lose situation. So in 2024, they would have collected 2-point-something million too many dollars from us. And they say, we're going to give that back to you eventually. They give that back to us like a year and a half later. So in February, there's a filing that says, the weather normalization for the previous year was this amount, and we are making a contribution to the RSA in that amount. And, and so when that is a credit, like 2024, they get to not pay it against our debt for 15 months. And in a bad inflation year, that's actually like quite a bit of money on a multi-million-dollar transaction. They also are charging us on the debt, so that could obviously, we are penalized for the more of our debt that they carry. And, and then when they don't hit their margins because of, they're going to say Muskrat Falls. They're going to say because of Muskrat Falls. They get to take more of our money while borrowing debt, right? So they don't put their profits into their debt management. They only use a line of credit. So now there are sort of two layers of debt that are going with this account. There's the ongoing short-term line of credit that they have for their operations. There is the ongoing debt that is accrued, and they are not offsetting the debt that they're collecting interest on with the cash that we're giving them in these weather overages. It is I love reading nerdy things, Patty. You probably know this about me by now, but this has been one of the most infuriating things I've ever read. It's like I think everyone knows there's like a huge amount of money being moved from poor people into Fortis. Like, we know that. But to really boil down into the hows, super bleak.
It's a strange one with I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it in full. Chris, I appreciate your time. After the break we go.
Have a good one, Patty.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, for those of you in the queue, appreciate your patience to stay right there. Ask why I didn't speak to this, why I didn't talk about that. Okay, so the question was about the decision made by Maria Corina Machado, the opposition leader in Venezuela. I mean, embarrassing for both. Cringe. Pathetic. She gifted her Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump yesterday. It's just something to behold. And then the other question in that same email was about the first sale of seized Venezuelan oil. All right. So $500 million. And not to the U.S. Treasury, but to a bank account in Qatar. And the first sale of the oil went to a fellow who donated $6 million to Trump's election campaign. So there you go. There's both. I mean, what goes on down there is just mind-boggling. Imagine the Nobel Prize Committee says you can't gift your prize to anybody else. It's just not how it works. But I guess in an effort to curry favor with the president, maybe get his endorsement to actually be the president of Venezuela, gifted the Nobel Prize. Oh, also mention Team Perry at the AUS Curling Championships. Don't want to leave out the women. Team Lock are also there representing Memorial University. At that tournament, the lead, the third and the skip just won the 2U20 provincials and just lost in the provincial ladies final. So good luck to Team Lock and to Team Perry. Let's get a break in. Do not go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to Mayor Verna Hayward out in St. Vincent, St. Stephen's, Peters River. And good morning, Mayor Hayward. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak. Our biggest issue in our area is lack of communication. And as you know, we have wild weather. We have more power outages than ever before all across the province. We're losing phone lines, but not to mention that when the power goes now, unless you have a generator, you have no communication with anybody. And we live in a community with mostly 60 plus, and people can't afford a generator. They can hardly afford to have their light bills to pay this month. And plus the fact that people have communication, like they have home phones, cell phones, iPads, but now it seems like we have to resort to radios because we are gone backwards in communication. And a radio would cost $700 to $1,000. So who can afford that? But I mean, we are at a standstill. We have no communication when the power goes in this area.
Yeah, so I mean, how many different pockets of the province, even if we're just talking about public safety, with very limited and sometimes zero cell phone coverage?
A lot.
Yep.
I drive through the town of Holywood, for example, and there's no self-service there. So we were part of a group, St. Mary's Bay Connect, where all towns threw in so much money. Our town was shafted altogether. We got one microcell on the Cemetery Hill, and I stand to be corrected, but as far as I'm concerned, that needs power to work. And that just gave a little bit of service in that section and a little bit of service to the beach area. St. Mary's, Riverhead, the Gaskers picked up a lot more service. But having said that, they need battery backup on their tower in the path end. What we need somebody from Bell to come sit down with us. And we have a tower in St. Stephen's, a CBC tower, that we need to put cell service on that, plus battery backup. Because there's no sense in just putting cell service here. Power goes, it's only going to last, apparently, from what I hear, a couple of hours. So on Monday night, another issue I have too, I'm always complaining about the fact that we need a breakwater. It's something that we should not have to worry about, but we've worried about that for our whole life. I've lived here for 36 years, and the breakwater is really old. So our fire chief took it upon himself on Monday evening. It wasn't very nice weather. The power went out here about 20 to 7, and my husband hooked up our generator, and he went to go help his cousin, and it was that stormy, he had to wait till the shower of snow passed. So then, around 9 o'clock, a knock came on our door. I didn't know who it was. It was our fire chief. He had been out just checking out things, doing his rounds, whatever, to observe that the sea was coming in over the beach. Now, meantime, that should be the responsibility of transportation and infrastructure. But they did not have any of their employees on alert, from what I understand. So I go to call the depot. There's no answer. They don't even have a generator at their depot. So, we had no communication with that. So the tragic thing is it's at 2:30 in the morning. Remember, our fire team have no communication. We do have a couple of radios, but the radios would be in a couple of houses. Then you have to go knock on doors or go try to round up all your fire team, where time is of the essence. So anyway, we had a fire in St. Stephen's, and sadly enough, the whole house was totaled, but the lady got out. And that lady called your open line last spring or last summer to explain about the lack of communication when we signed on to fibre up, ironically. And this 80-year-old woman was spared, thank God. But the call came in from 911. She had to run next door. Her nephew took her to the top of Peters River Hill. She had to call 911. And then they made the call to nearby Riverhead, which they are our mutual agreement we have with them. And so they have a pager system. So then they rounded up their firefighters. They passed along. I live on the main road. The fire chief lives on the main road. So my husband is, noticed that. He said, that's a fire truck going by. He jumped to his feet and he took off. So did the fire chief. And another guy kept his generator on. So we got a call from 911. Another guy lives in nearby the Gaskers. He had cell service. He got a call. And then another guy down the road heard the sirens, and he jumped to his feet. I think other people might have heard it, but they thought it was an ambulance. But in the meantime, when Riverhead got to the scene, the house was totaled, which, But what I'm saying is that we are worse off now in 2026 than we ever were. We are really, really at a standstill. And it's terrible, it's crazy, it's scary.
Sad state of affairs, that's for sure. Just very quickly, I want to bounce back to the breakwater. What's the status of it now? Because that has been inadequate for as long as I can remember. Well,
back in October, when again we had a power outage and we lost the fish plant in St. Mary's, they had just gotten a hold to our fire department to go on the scene. 20 minutes from that, the power was gone. So this is the second time we've had a fire with power outage. The whole file with just one lane. And Farrell's just did an amazing job of repairing the road again. And but we've lost that. We've had issues with that road. I would venture a bet since I came on council in 2013, about 6 or 7 times. And last night, like 4 o'clock this morning, the heavy rain woke me, and we had issues with internet. So, you know, we're paying a fortune for our cell phones, our iPads. We're paying a good bit of money for our plans. Here we are now. It's just as well for us to get a radio, because we have no communication when the power goes, and it's a common occurrence. We had lost it for like 8 hours, and it was a planned outage because the Newfoundland Power were doing service. But, like, what do we do going forward? As far as I'm concerned, we need to sit down with a Bell rep, and we need to sit down with the federal government. And actually, Paul Connors is amazing. He knows about it. He's fighting it every day in Ottawa. It's not just a rural Newfoundland problem. It's a rural Canada problem.
No question. Yep.
So we need, it's public safety. Like I said, you know, I was interviewed on CBC Radio. He said, asked me, do you feel isolated? I said, yes, I feel isolated. So a couple of years ago, the provincial government, because of what happened with Igor, made a province-wide radio system. So they put antennas on the tower in St. Stephen's. So that's for first responders. The radios work. Okay, so they put one on Hickey's Hill, which gives support to Trapassi. But my hometown of St. Shots, I have nothing, because there was the Kings Ridge on Peters River Road should have gotten antennas, but they didn't. So we had an issue last year when the RCMP came into St. Shots, 4 cop cars, and they had to stay up on St. Shots Road, and because there was a bit of cell service there. Okay, so what happens if the power goes? I mean, that community is further away from hospital than we are, and they also have a fire department. Like, we are gone backwards when it comes to public safety in rural Newfoundland. And I'm asking any communities that are in the same situation as us to contact us, and we need to do something. We need to march. We need to do emails. We need to do letter writing. We need to call your open line, and we need to do something, because we've got a lot of people purchasing properties in our area, not to realize that they're gone backwards with communication, and it's just scary. I mean, if you collapse on your floor and there's no power, what do? You're going to be there. And Bell told us initially that, oh, yes, we can still call 911. No, we cannot call 911. And not only that, like, they told us we could buy a battery backup. I forget what it costs. That only lasts for 12 hours. Some people lost the power at 5 o'clock on Monday, and it didn't come back till almost 5 or later on Tuesday. So I'm calling on the provincial government, federal government, all towns that are in the situation that we are in, we got to do something. We have to take this and deal with it. Like, it's just crazy.
I totally understand. I got plenty of people belong to me out in the area. They tell me the same thing all the time. There's a distinct difference between the haves and the have-nots insofar as communication and access to reliable communication in this province is just dreadful. I know there were supposed to be 10 pilot projects coming up to expand cell service like they did last year down the Burgeo Highway. I don't know what the status of it is, nor do I know if your region is included, but I'll see if I can find out some information.
Like, we're fundraising all the time. We need a better truck. We need a truck that can hold more water. Based on what happened last summer, with the dry summer, our truck don't hold enough water. And we hadn't got enough water in all the different reservoirs for firefighting. So now, we're putting in an application to get radios so that all the fire team can have a radio. But at the end of the day, our residents have nothing. I have a generator, but it's no good if all the other residents don't have generators. And a lot of people are seniors. They don't want the bother of a generator, even if they could afford it, but you need to have it going for hours and hours based on the outages that we're having. So, it's a public safety issue, and it's 2026, Patty. Like, instead of us having, like, we used to be able to plug in what I would term an old-fashioned phone into the jack, and it had an internal battery. Well, none of that is happening anymore. And from what I can gather from the Deputy Mayor of St. Shots, Ricky Myrick, a very bright fella, tells me that the Bell does not have to provide us with a landline. And basically, they don't have to provide us with communication based on what we're dealing with. And not only that, like he's a very bright fella. He should call your station because he can talk to you. But we met with Paul Connors before Christmas, and he is aware of our situation, and many others. Sherry is aware of it. I was able to reach Sherry, and she was on vacation in Dominican. Dominican had cell service. We are in Canada, in Newfoundland. We are backwards, and it's not good enough.
Mayor Hayward, understand your points, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for the call.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. That's Mayor Verna Hayward out in St. Vincent, St. Stephen's, Peters River. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Cynthia, you're on the air.
Hey, so I wanted to, first, thanks so much for having me. I wanted to talk about childcare and the issues with someone, either a home family childcare provider or like a licensee trying to open a center. Everyone right now is having very, very hard times trying to get licensed. And it's not because of funding, although that is a challenge. One of the biggest challenges is that I don't know if it's the change of government or what's happening, but they're just not issuing licenses right now. There's a freeze, and we don't know why. The reason it's an issue for my family in particular is that right now I'm operating a family childcare, and I'm currently unlicensed. I'm in the process of getting licensed. So when I'm unlicensed, I'm only allowed to have 4 children total, and that's including my own 2 children. Which means I can only take on 2 other children, 2 other paying families, which means I'm not making a lot of money at all, like less than minimum wage, which is ridiculous. It's a sin. It's not enough. People can't survive on this.
Of course not. I thought you were the lady who sent me an email overnight with the very same story, except she only has 1 child, which counts in her quota of 4. She's making about $20,000 a year. Nowhere near enough money to pay the bills and do the required renovations to become a regulated childcare provider. So, I guess some of this has to do with the fact that late last year, the federal government money ran out in full, and they're not going to replenish it until April. So that means no money for renovations and no money for inspections. So things have basically come to a crashing standstill.
Yes, and so that's part of the issue, is that there's not enough funding. But I know several providers who are in the same boat as me. They've paid to do the renovations themselves, and right now, I've done all my training, I've done all the renovations, I've had all of my inspections, and I've passed them. I am ready to open my doors, and I have been since November. And there has been a standstill in licensing. The government is not licensing anything right now for childcare. Either childcare centers or family childcares, and nobody is really sure why. What some people have heard is that there's a hold because they say, okay, well, the funding has run out, so we can't license you. But the thing is, the OGP funding, which is the funding that allows $10 a day to happen, that is separate from being licensed, and you actually have to be licensed before you can apply for the OGP funding.
Fair enough.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So it's silly that they're not letting anyone be licensed because of that funding. When I have families who are ready, I have families who are waiting. And I'm in a rural area. I'm in Carbonear. There's there's a demand for childcare. There's not enough, and so if there aren't licensed spaces where there are safe childcare options available, people are going to be going to unlicensed facilities and paying those high prices anyway for childcare that may not be safe, may not be good quality. People may be operating over their ratios. Wouldn't it make sense, even if there's not OGP, and people are ready and willing to open, wouldn't it make sense for them to just license license these family childcare homes who are ready to open and ready to take on more children in a safe and quality way.
Absolutely. And, with all of the policies that were created and affordable and accessible childcare and all levels of government were really promoting and talking about how important an issue it was to them, and yet here we are.
Yeah. And another thing I'm hearing from a lot of people is that it was probably rolled out way too soon, and that maybe $10 a day, like, it sounds nice in theory, like, oh yeah, $10 a day childcare, who doesn't want that? But the thing is, it's very hard to maintain, and not everybody needs $10 a day childcare. Like, before that is even an issue, like, we need accessible childcare spaces. There needs to be space available. People need to be able to send their children to to a safe and quality childcare facility, whether it's a day home or a center, so that they can go to work. Because honestly, most families now cannot survive off of one income. So we need these childcare spaces.
Yeah, unless that one income is a surgeon.
Funding is nice to have. Yeah, childcare funding is a nice to have, but what we need right now is childcare spaces. And I was so surprised to find that there are many of the people across the province in the same boat as me, where they have paid for renovations. They've already paid for renovations. They're just now waiting for inspections so they can open their doors. Now, I want to tell you the most ridiculous thing is that if you're trying, let's say someone doesn't know the rules when it comes to opening a home childcare or a day home. Generally, you're only allowed 4, including your own children. Now, let's say you don't know those rules and you have up to 6 children in your care just because you didn't know. Now, in that case, and this is the most ridiculous part, in that case, what the government has said is that if you're in that position, you can still operate while you're trying to get licensed, and Family Childcare Connections, which is the agency that licensed family childcares in the province, they will work with you to get licensed as quick as possible, usually in about 6 months. So tell me why someone who didn't know the rules is allowed to care for up to 6 children, and someone who is like me, who is in childcare is my background. I'm a level 4 ECE. Someone who is like me, who have followed the rules from the beginning and suffering, making less than minimum wage while I'm waiting to get licensed and not know what's happening, while other people who willy-nilly go into home childcare get to keep their 6 children and get paid for those 6 children. Something is backwards and not right here.
Yeah, counterintuitive to say the very least. So is that actually happening, Cynthia? People are breaking the rules, even if it's unknowingly breaking the rules, and they get fast-tracked?
Now, the fast track, the thing is, it takes a while to get licensed, especially if you have to do renovations. So ideally, they work with them. So and one of my friends, out of no fault of her own, she had, and she wasn't very familiar with childcare, so she had 6 children in her care, and this was before we even knew each other. So she had 6 children in her care, and she was like, oh no, okay, so she went to get licensed. It took her a couple of years because she had a lot of home renovations to do, but she was allowed to keep those 6 children up until she got licensed, which was recently. So that is the case, and that is happening. And no, she wasn't abusing it. I hope people aren't abusing that. But the thing is that if I did that now, could I get in trouble? Because I was talking with my mom, my dad, people are like, well, why can't you just take on more kids? And I'm like, that's against the law. Could I get fined? Could I lose my childcare certification? Could that delay me getting licensed properly? All these things, it just, I don't know, it's so silly, and it doesn't make any sense.
It really does not.
Being penalized for trying to do things properly.
Oh my God, it's maddening. Cynthia, anything else this morning?
It is so maddening.
It really is. It's infuriating.
Yeah, nothing else, but it's just that so we're at a complete standstill. Most of the people I know who are not wanting funding right now, we just want to be able to be licensed. I would just, anyone who has any information, we would be so appreciative if anyone had more information or more insight. We've reached out to Paul Dinn, the Minister of Education. We've reached out to various MHAs across the province. We're just trying to get more information so we can get licensed. It's not right.
It isn't. I really appreciate making time, Cynthia. Keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's like they say, help me make sense of this. You know, and look, if someone has made an honest mistake and has too many children in their unregulated childcare space, they somehow get additional assistance to get to, I use fast track, that's probably the poor choice of words, to get closer to the licensing process being finalized. You know, let's go. The government here, the government federally, they have made real big patting themselves on the back photo ops out of talking about childcare and the creation of spaces. Well, let's go. Let's get a break in. Alex, you stay right there and talk about the power bills. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Alex, you're on the air.
A very pleasant morning to yourself and all the staff there.
You too, Alex.
Thank you. I wonder, I was a little nervous to make this call because there certainly have been multiple calls concerning the power bills and electricity and all. I thought, I don't want to flog a dead horse here or something, but my questions are a little different. And what it is, I got my recent power bill and started scratching my head. Maybe I'm just an old fella, I guess, but I decided, you know, I've been here for months and I've never seen anybody come and read the meter. Or a Newfoundland power car pull up on the side of the road for a minute, and maybe I just didn't see them. But they can't get to the meter without walking past me in front of these windows. I'm here all the time. So I gave them a call, and a very pleasant young lady answered, and she says, oh, don't worry about that, my dear, because, quote, we can read your meter from up to a mile away. So that immediately, I just said, okay, didn't know that, thanks very much, bye. But no, I'm not okay with that because, A, I'm way down in the bushes and cabin in the woods, and good luck. But, I mean, well, you can't do it with a telescope, that's for sure. So I got concerned. I thought, I heard all about these smart readers and so on. Of course, they'd be smarter than me. So I don't know how to read a meter in the first place, so I'm about to find out, though. So the thing is, A, my first question would be, how do I know it's a so-called smart meter or otherwise? I have no idea, but I want to find out. Secondly, I'm thinking, I wonder on what day, and I'm afraid that maybe it's different for everybody, I wonder on what day, once I find out how to read the meter and keep track, how do I know what day do I read it? And then I will keep track from now on. No. So I'm wondering how to do all this myself, and nobody can second guess me. But what I'm afraid of is I hope you're not just assuming, taking a wild guess based on the previous tenant, which is, I've only been here for so many months. So that won't work. The other thing, don't second guess me on where I lived prior to this, because that's an hour and a half drive from here. No, that don't work here. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, how do I figure all this stuff out, I wonder?
Well, for usage, you can just compare month-to-month bills and read your kilowatt hours. But a smart meter is interesting insofar as it's a digital utility meter, both for electricity, gas, water, and communicates detailed energy consumption with the utility consistently and constantly. So not only can you just look at your phone and see what your consumption rates are looking at when you download an application, it also allows for customers of one utility or another, it's called time of use rates. So as opposed to everyone turning on the dishwasher after breakfast or the washing machine at after supper or whatever the case may be, you get a different rate based on when you use. So it's encouraging customers to move to off-peak hours for some of the heavy consumption things, like dishwashers running at night versus right after supper. It's more efficient for the grid. There is faster response from the utility to any particular problems. So, yeah, I mean, that's the basic upside of a smart meter. Now, it does come with some online risk. Just look at the cyber attack of the smart meter system in Nova Scotia just last year. So that's sort of the basics of smart meters and how they work.
Okay. So if I go out there again tomorrow, I went up first, had a look at it, and how do I know it's a smart meter or otherwise?
Well, if it's here in this province, it's not a smart meter. It's the older meters that we've been using for quite a long time.
So I'm wondering what she based her response on, because what she told me was, quote, oh, we can read your meter from up to a mile away. I don't believe that for a second, do you?
Yeah, well, I don't know how much I trust it, but they can. They have a handheld device that can, in certain proximity to your meter, get the reading, which is vastly different than at Newfoundland Power, right here on Kenmount Road. If we were all on smart meters, they'd be able to have detailed information about usage for every single home in their province at the tip of their fingers. And we'd have the detailed information about consumption in the palm of our hands, because you'd have an application on your phone as part of the advanced metering infrastructure, so that detailed, consistent and constant sharing of information goes both ways, and Newfoundland Power would have all the information right in front of them. No need to be walking up and down streets or driving up and down streets with a handheld tool to read meters.
Well, to be truthful, just me personally, I'd have no problem. I'd probably be happy for them to say, would you like us to put a smart meter in? I'd say, absolutely, go ahead. But I presume then that what I got there is not, but yeah, so they still could be truthful. It could be possible that they can read it from a distance without a smart meter.
Yeah, now whether or not that's actually a really accurate way of doing it at such a distance, I don't know enough about the technology, but it certainly doesn't seem like the meter reading of days gone by when someone with a Newfoundland Power uniform would walk into your backyard, look at your meter and record it on pen and paper and bring it back for the billing process to begin. So now I know we can't go backwards, we need to go forwards, but the confusion about the bills this month is unbelievable. I'm going to guess since the beginning, when we came back to work here in January, no fewer than 1,000 emails about this exact topic.
Good heavens. Well, I'm kind of curious about it because my bill is 5 times what it is normally. And even though it's not much, but, anybody who talks to me about it, they say, that's it? That's your power bill? Yes. You got any heat on? Precious little, just enough to keep the pipes from freezing. You got to go around with a coat and gloves and a winter coat and sweater and everything in those all winter around here. So that's why it's what it normally is, pretty low. And I gave them a call in the past, in my last place, and they said, Alex, you're worried about your power bill. Well, just making sure everything's okay. They said, you got any heat on at all? Like, man, You're a rarity, You average $45 a month all year round. I said, okay, that's not great. It's just, I'd love to be able to trade you places, but the thing is here, it's just at $200, so I'm speechless. Yeah. But I presume, I guess they have a way to read it, and maybe they're right. There's only a little baseboard heater in a bedroom and a little plug-in oil-filled radiant heater in the bathroom. That's the only heat in the place. And, it's a little cottage. I'm thinking, how the heck can my bill hit $200? I'm flabbergasted. But I guess I'm going to be cutting down everything.
Well, you're not alone.
No dishwashers or anything here. But I'm not the only one. I would say many people are concerned about it. And, well, thanks for the info. I'm going to learn how to read that meter and check it. Who would be where do you learn how to do that?
I get some advice from Newfoundland Power, or simply look at their website. You'll find the information there.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time this morning. God bless you all. I hope you have a lovely day.
Thanks, and same to you, Alex. All right, there you go. Bye-bye. All right, time for the news. When we come back, we're talking about the push-up challenge. We've talked about the push-up challenge many times in the past. Also get some thoughts from Nathan Gillingham, the Director of External Affairs with Munsu, about the tuition freeze that was now announced this week by the Minister of Education, Paul Dinn. And then we're talking access to mental health supports, and then whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Saying more to the Senior Fund Development Officer at the Canadian Mental Health Association, Newfoundland and Labrador. That's Mandy Palyubicki. Good morning, Mandy. You're on the air.
Hi, Mr. Daly. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Call me Patty, please. And how badly did I butcher your surname?
You did really good, actually. Surprisingly well.
Good. Glad to hear it. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Well, this February, the Canadian Mental Health Association is taking part in the push-up challenge. And I would just really love for your audience to take part. We're talking about 2,000 push-ups over 23 days. 2,000 push-ups, Patty. How are your push-up skills?
Mine, decent. I've got a bum shoulder, so not great.
It can be tough. So the good news with this challenge is that it is not necessarily push-up specific. You can do alternate exercises. You could do push-ups with knees down. You could do push-ups against the wall. You could do squats or any sort of activity that works with your fitness goals or your mobility issues. 2,000 push-ups represents lives lost to suicide each day, so it's a significant number. And when you join the challenge, you download the app and you receive evidence-based tips and tricks, tools and activities to help take care of your own mental health while you get back to the community.
You know, we have Bill Guiney or Susan Guiney on the show every now and then talk about the push-up challenges that they instigate, which I think has been very helpful. And there's no coincidence that we're talking about something like a physical activity or a physical challenge to deal with our mental health, because we've been told constantly and consistently being physically active is very beneficial to your mental health, especially when that is conducted outdoors.
100%. Science tells us that moving our body improves psychological well-being, and it can reduce depression and anxiety. So this is a great opportunity to give your head a shake, put down your phone, get up off the couch, move your body, and just think about your own mental wellness and be part of something big, be part of your community, and do something meaningful.
This is not the first time that the Canadian Mental Health Association has engaged in the push-up challenge, is it?
No, so this is our third year, actually,
Right.
and this is a really cool event because it is a global phenomenon. The campaign was invented in Australia. Canada picked this up 2 years ago, and it has become one of the largest peer-to-peer fundraisers in Canada. Since its inception in 2024, $6 million have been raised to support mental wellness.
Any idea how many Canadians participated last year, or how many people in this province?
Gosh, Patty, I wish I had that number in front of me, but I don't.
Well, hopefully, whatever that number is, it's larger this year.
Well, that's what I'm hoping, and people can sign up at thepushupchallenge.ca. And I had heard a rumor, Patty, that the New Country 930 folks can really crank out some push-ups, but I was wondering how VOCM is with their push-up situation.
Well, I can't speak for anyone else here, but I think I'm going to take it on just for every imaginable reason. A little bit of upper body strength, and, you know, a good point about the phone. I feel like sometimes throwing my phone into the sun, and it'll definitely won't be part of my push-ups in February.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear it. Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time. Keep up the good work.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye-bye. That's Mandy Palabicki, the Senior Fund Development Officer at the Canadian Mental Health Association, Newfoundland and Labrador chapter. Let's go. Line number 5, speaking more to the Director of External Affairs with MUNSU. That's the Student Union. That's Nathan Gillingham. Nathan, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how are you?
Excellent today. How about you?
Oh, we're doing good, Yeah, so the university has been making a lot of headlines in recent days for several reasons. And I would just like to talk a little bit today about the tuition freeze announcement.
Sure. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, and so I just want to further say that, let's not get it twisted, that tuition freeze significantly offsets the cost of living for thousands of students in the province. However, at this time, I do question if this announcement was ready to be made for several reasons. Now, we have to keep in mind that this announcement didn't come from government. This announcement didn't come from the university. This announcement came from the Federation of Students on a verbal commitment that was made in a meeting. And so what we've seen is that the Board of Regents has been kind of thrown off guard a bit. They were not consulted on this decision. Currently, no movement has been made on a tuition freeze. And obviously, there's still time to work out those details, but ultimately, a tuition freeze will have to come from the Board of Regents. And there are some very significant concerns around the financial deficit that Memorial finds itself in right now. MUN revenue is currently down 20 to 30% since 2011. and they're currently in something effective a $20 million deficit. Now, that's a real financial reality, Patty. I just want to emphasize that. So when the government hasn't made any commitment to an increase in an operational grant to the university, there are concerns around its feasibility and how exactly that will be implemented. So what we've seen in Ontario, who also froze tuition without an increase in funding, is that these are felt in other areas, such as like job cuts, such as cuts to maintenance, such as cuts to departments, and this obviously impacts the student experience as well. And just Janet Morrison, the president of the university, she said, if a tuition freeze translates into a further loss of revenue for the institution, there's no way students don't feel that. And so there are definitely some unanswered questions here. And I just want to go back to Alex Usher. He's a university national consultant and advisor, and he also said that students inevitably bear the brunt, getting less for what they pay for, otherwise shorter degree lengths and the available courses, and this is just what to expect for a university that's under such financial pressure. So I guess from our perspective as the student union, what we need to see right now are just further answers on an implementation. We need a plan, actually, to make sure that student services and just the sustainability of the institution as a whole is delivered.
Yeah, and we don't even know if there was an actual plan to raise tuition next fall or how much. So there's that. Then this whole business about, like, for 22 years when the tuition freeze was in place. Okay, the tuition freeze was in place, but every single fee across the board increased. So what do you think the likelihood of that being replicated this go around with this tuition freeze?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to clarify that it was planned for the 2026 to raise tuition by 4%, and that's something that was in the university's financial trajectories. They've accounted for that in all the current cuts that they have been making. So obviously this does throw them for a loop a little bit. So
okay, fair enough. Thank you.
It's just such an interesting announcement to make. Like, if the PCs are looking for a political win, they're going to have to pay for it, and in order to effectively deliver it. So I really question just the fact that there isn't so many details at this time when students are really needing that.
Yeah. So, and thank you for correcting me on the forecasted increase, but that's where we found ourselves with fees. And, for someone who has written a check to Memorial University for my children to attend, is the number that I write on the check is the most important part to me. Of course, we need to have a careful breakdown of all the different fees from campus renewal on down and what tuition is. But when I was writing checks for tuition, there's a tax break associated with tuition, and there's not for other student fees. So I just have that worry into the future. And Dr. Morrison didn't say exactly that, but she did say, the tuition freeze jeopardizes revenue. It'll have to come from elsewhere. Well, there's only really two streams: grants and fees and tuitions, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, the tuition is the major revenue for the university, and if that's not going to be delivered on, then of course that needs to come from government.
Yeah, and the government will make the point that it's still a very competitive rate of tuition here, and they'll do the endless comparisons to the province of Nova Scotia. It's not inaccurate, but it's not necessarily the point either. Is if the province of Nova Scotia puts, the government of Nova Scotia, it's hundreds of millions, maybe about $150 or $200 million more than what we do, but that's to every university in that province. But the trick there is we only have one university, and we've got to maintain it. I mean, it's a shame how the infrastructure deficit has ballooned to, $481 million last examination. We do away with the tuition freeze, things double right away. At the exact same time, there's a new limit on international students, which is a significant form of revenue as well. So we're in a tricky spot at MUN.
No, absolutely, Patty. The university is in a very severe situation right now, and I feel that that's been pretty obvious in a lot of news over the last couple of months, over the last couple of years even. And right now, we really need some clear answers from the PC government. because it is very concerning that they want to make an announcement without even consulting with the university on it. There have been many times where the government has the intention of allocating funding for a specific reason, but then the Board of Regents ultimately decides that they want to use it elsewhere because they are an independent organization at the end of the day. They do decide where the money goes. But if the PC government wants to hold this over the university's head, which they do seem to be pretty adamant in doing, of course it just comes down to how is this going to be felt. And so those are some concerns. And like I said, there's the tuition freeze is very important to our members. This is something we've been advocating for years, but not necessarily the way that it's being implemented right now.
Yeah, I understand the concerns and the questions because it's a very much a feel-good announcement, but it comes with some complicating factors and some additional questions. And at this point, no real further answers. And it doesn't feel like a coincidence that the tuition freeze was announced on the same day as the executive restructuring. Now, they say they didn't work together on those announcements, but it is sort of strange how there was a coinky-dink like it being happening the same morning. Anything else this morning, Nathan, while we have you?
Yeah. Just to touch a little bit on the announcement from the university, I think this goes into what we're discussing about. Of just this is the trajectory that the university is on right now. Of course, cuts will be coming from senior admin as well. So the university is in a very particular condition right now, and we need some more answers from on a strategic vision, a shared vision from the university and the government.
I appreciate your time this morning, Nathan. Thanks for the call.
Thanks so much, Paddy. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Director of External Affairs at the Memorial University Students' Union, Nathan Gillingham. Let's get a break in. When we come back, we'll talk about access to mental health supports. Don't go away. Let's go to line number 6. Good morning, Gerard. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you today, sir?
I'm okay.
Thank you for having me on your show.
No problem. How are you?
Been better, been worse. Figured I'd been a long time since I chatted with you. I think it may have been October month, maybe November. I phoned in before about having issues of accessing mental health care, about getting a ban and such, about a letter. And I remember I brought up before how I've been addressing it through the College of Physicians and Physicians and Surgeons. Sorry. I'm still waiting on a response even from the doctor with that one. I know on the 17th of November they had finally accepted and clarified that my submission was done, and well, tomorrow will be the 17th of January, so we're talking about 60 days past instead of 30. I know Christmas holidays were there, but we don't have 30 days of Christmas holidays. I'm having issues still getting any mental health care. I'm a person with a disability. I have a T2201 form, so I have no access to anything I require to get by. Things have in ways escalated. I know I was in St. John's before Christmas, and I had made a stop into the gathering place to get some counseling. And, of course, you sign your papers, and recently they have become part of the same union of mental health services, and the next day I went in to talk about some housing issues and stuff. They brought up my mental health issues in front of other clients, and I said I'd come in for housing. I said I didn't bring anything up, and they said we were told. I said, you were told by who? And they shrugged their shoulders, and I said, you can't be talking about this in front of clientele. I mean, there's people here who've done their time and been in court, and you can't just go by this. But of course I find out it's tied in through the same union. The information is shared, and I don't know what is said even. So to this day, I still don't know what's being said about me. I cannot access anything, and I'm not one of the audience members going doing push-ups for mental health when I can't even access it. I have to do it because, I'm angry. I feel that this is wrong, that I'm not explained, no access to my information, that I need help, I try for help. And I can't get it. The only service I seem to be able to use is 988. Yes, you can access to the suicide helpline 988 by hiding your phone number. They work differently than 811. But it's getting to the point that I'm falling apart almost, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and I didn't know what to tell you the last time we spoke either.
No.
Yeah, when someone needs these types of support. So let's go back to the beginning here. Why is it, or what have you been told as to why you're banned?
I was told that there was somebody in one of the buildings out here that were afraid of me from years ago. I had moved away for 2.5 years. But there's nothing criminal. I never got charged. There's no record. But I don't even know what was said. Therefore, it gets me a blanket ban. So I've asked to be clarified exactly what's going on. And the letter I received, I've been told, is not legal because there's always a time limit, not a permanent lifelong ban. Things didn't match. There was no signature. It just said Mental Health Administration Team. No signature. A Marystown address with the phone number belonging to another town, Buren town. So it's nothing made sense. So I'm still trying to find answers, and it's hard. I know there's a process going on, but is that long? Like, I don't know what to do, and to not be able to access any services. It's why does it feel like it's encouraged for me to do something to myself? Like, that's why I look at it. Like, I haven't. I'm still alive, but it feels like, it may not be said, but the actions are different, or lack thereof, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Now, you did mention that you tried to contact the College of Physicians and Surgeons. Is that what you said?
Yes, so I have had the doctor submitted. That was on the letter. But I'm still waiting for for his response. So I have no idea. This is now be 2 months tomorrow since, they clarified that my submission was what they clarified. So I know there was, like I said, Christmas holidays, but 30 days, this would be 60. So I'm really stressed because I still have nothing at this point in time. Like, how does someone register with a disability gets to T2201 form for taxes, and I can't access anything, like nothing.
I wish I knew where to direct you.
I know.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation to find yourself in. Have you gone back to the drawing board to see if this ban is still in place today?
Yes, because they said that no messages will ever be answered. I've tried client relations. I've tried everything. It's just a total mute. I know even one of my family members I had down as an emergency contact to find info, he phoned one place and they said the woman will phone him back. He phoned an hour later and said they said the woman wasn't in the building. So, 2 different answers in one day. So avoidance 100%. It's and this has affected my family. Luckily, in the last 30 days, there's some improvement in me. I've had to take things in my own hands. I've noticed reaching out for help that's not there was pointless. That caused more issues. Taking certain steps, like it's just different. Like, knowing what is my comfort zone, what sources I find useful, like 988. The thing is, if you phone it with your number showing with the contract that is made with East Inner Health Services, it goes right to 811. Hide the number, you get through, which is on every phone. You get the 988. They don't ask for your MCP. They don't ask this and that, because if there's anything wrong, they will they'll trace the number and send help there right off the bat. So it's for those who find something different when training, that there's an option for people to use, and it's theirs nationwide for Canada. And I make sure I stick to myself. My cat, of course, I find she's an awesome, unofficial therapeutic animal. So, I look at what I do have, to keep myself occupied, because if I don't do it at this point in time, no one is. Call it resilience, I don't know.
Listen, hang in there, Gerard. I appreciate your time. Keep me in the loop.
Thank you, because I know I'm not the only one that runs into issues, and I know, suicides are happening all the time in this province, and I just feel like sharing the story that, someone else always got it worse, and I don't believe I got it the worst at all, but sharing their stories and making an alert is just, we're not alone. It's about all we can do at the point in time. Well, you take care and stay safe, and a late Happy New Year.
That very same to you. Take care of yourself as well.
Bye.
All the rest. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in for the 11:30 news. Do not go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the Conservative Party of Canada Member of Parliament serving the folks of Terra Nova, the Peninsulas. That's Jonathan Rowe. Jonathan, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I just want to read something that you put out.
It's a rainy day out here in Claremont.
Yeah, it's kind of dreary here in town, to be honest, as well. I want to read something that you put out here regarding the meeting tonight at 7 p.m. So it says, Jonathan Rowe invites you to Claremont Inn, Random A, for a presentation on Bill C-9. He states that if Bill C-9 passes, it will expose people of faith to possible criminal prosecution for the simple act of quoting their own sacred texts, that include the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran. You know that's not true, right?
Well, I think that's listen. It was that statement was put out by the United Church in a church service in United Church in the bulletin to invite them to the C9 meeting tonight. For you to say that that's not true is interesting, because there are dozens and hundreds of organizations across Canada that feel that that is true. And the United Church of Canada actually put in a statement that they fear that is true. So I told them, that church, that I would have a meeting on Friday night to talk about those issues and concerns. So, C9 is interesting because it's actually the amendment that is raising concerns across the country. Bill C-9 was originally designed to protect religious groups. It was mostly driven by the anti-Semitism rise that we've seen in the past few months and few years. So shortly after it was introduced, there's an amendment made by the Bloc. And that amendment is what the United Church of Canada, the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church, the Jewish communities, the Muslim communities, the Sikh communities all have issues with. And it's ironic that although that bill was originally designed to protect those communities, now all those communities are coming out and saying, hey, we have issues with this, we have concerns with this. And it's not just religious organizations. The Palestinian Canadian Congress group spoke out with concerns. The LGBT Community Alliance for Trans Youth in Ontario came out and spoke against the amendments in Bill C-9. I mean, I have thousands of constituents right across this district that are part of these communities and that have these concerns. So, it's not me. It's not just me. I'm not the only one in Canada saying that this is an issue and people want to make sure it's protected before it comes into law. And that's exactly why we're having the meeting tonight. To discuss that. I mean, a lot of people read Bill C-9 and they don't see the major issues, because the major issues, according to all these organizations, are in that Bloc amendment. And you can't read that Bloc amendment online yet because it's not published until after it goes into House. And that's the tricky part when maneuvering through this. So, so that's kind of the issue. I felt, I'm an MP. I like listening. I like information, spreading information to the constituents. We've had people tell me that there's a housing crisis in Newfoundland and Labrador, housing issues. So I brought in the Shadow Minister for Housing to have roundtables about housing. Tourism is a big part of our district, Bonavista, especially other places, Greens Harbour, Dildo. So I brought in the Tourism Minister. We have, ACOA is big with a lot of small business rely on ACOA. So I brought in the ACOA Shadow Minister. So I brought in these Shadow Ministers for all these topics that have issues. And I think it's only appropriate that so many people are crying out, saying that there's an issue with C-9. I think it's only appropriate to bring in Andrew Lawton, who's on the Justice Committee, to talk about these issues and let Canadians know and let my constituents know that I'm an MP that listens to them, regardless of what church, organization, or community they're part of.
The basic question, though, about, like, for instance, if after Bill C-9 passes, everything that we can see and read about it today is if someone goes on social media and simply quotes scripture from any of the holy books, nothing's going to happen. There'll be no criminal prosecution. There won't be any charges. There's certainly nothing that I can read.
Right, and that's interesting, because that's what we would want. But what ended up happening was the minister, Mark Miller, came out and said that verses in Deuteronomy, Leviticus, and even the New Testament, Romans, which these books are in the Bible and the Torah, that they should never be used because they have clear hatred in them. So he's expressing what that amendment is about. And his words there is what got people very concerned. And it really goes to show that ideally we don't want, I agree with you, Patty, we don't want a society where people go on Facebook and quote a verse and can then be put in jail. Nobody wants that. So that's exactly why so many Christian organizations say, hey, we don't want that. Let's make sure there's provisions in this so that doesn't happen.
That's part of what the minister said, though, in fairness, isn't it? You know, to use a religious quote or a quote from Scripture to justify portraying a group as dangerous, evil, subhuman, or deserving of harm. That's what he said, and that's the intent of this. And I also know that you probably do know that all of the Supreme Court rulings on this stuff are clear. The protections in the Charter are still in place. So this is basically codifying into the criminal code things that have been adjudicated at the Supreme Court of Canada. It's not going to include, you know, the inability to express your religious beliefs or to quote Scripture or have moral disagreements or to be able to criticize other ideologies or other behaviors or, you know, to upset people. It's when we use religion to justify something that promotes hate or harm, right? I mean, that's the basics of what the minister said in full.
Yes, but this is what's interesting. There's already laws in place that if you incite violence or harm, there is no. What I'm being told is that there is no religious defense for that. There's nothing there for clear incitement of hate already. It's only when. So now it's going beyond further. And you talked about having it's in our Charter of Freedoms. So if it's in our Charter of Freedoms, and why are we taking out the in good faith? There's an in good faith protection there that we're wanting to remove. So these are the kind of things, Patty, these are exactly the kind of things that we need to talk about at this meeting. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not on the Justice Committee. I'm not the expert on it. But that's why we're having this meeting. And I encourage people, if you've got questions like yourself, Patty, come out to tonight's meeting, ask Andrew Lawton, ask myself. We can have those conversations, we can give you more information, and we can have those discussions. I
appreciate your time. Thank you, Jonathan.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Jonathan Rowe, the Conservative member for Terranova the Peninsula's final break of the morning and the week. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Ken, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
I realize you're short on time right now, but I'm calling from Placentia. I just moved there recently, and I'm getting to know members of the community, and there's something very big going on out here now, and it's about their flood wall or wave wall. It's failing. Now, right now, I am looking at pictures that were captured by a lady, Lorraine Chubbs. She's lived there her entire life, and she says she's telling me that it's getting worse. She hasn't seen it as bad as it's been in the last few months with floodwaters coming in since the wall was built. Now, notably, CBC was down there, did an interview with the mayor, okay, and that's published on, I forget the title right now, but anyway, the mayor was talking about the wall is starting to rust and stuff like that. So last night, Lorraine, the lady I mentioned, Lorraine Chubbs, she captured some photos, and the water went all the way to the Tim Hortons and the mall parking lot, which is quite a ways from, it's a fair bit from the wave wall, right? It even came up almost up to the house that I live in, and it's a lot of people are out here are very concerned. Now, please understand, I know very little. I just moved there like a month ago, so I'm calling you. Maybe you can bring some attention or some awareness to this, or encourage, or by me calling, other long-term residents can call in and express their concerns to you. You know what I'm saying, Patty?
I do. We've actually had a couple of conversations about it this week, including Mayor Verna Hayward out in that area, out St. Stephen, St. Vincent, St. Peter's River. So it's on my radar, and it's been on the air today, and justifiably so. It's simply not adequate to protect the town.
Yeah, like I said, Patty, I don't even know if I have the right to do what I'm doing right now. I just moved there, but I feel like I'm part of the community already and talking to locals about certain topics and stuff like that. So I'm hoping I'm not overstepping my bounds.
You are not one bit.
Okay, that's good to know, because I don't want to step on people's toes and stuff like that. But anyway, just for your information, there's a group that I'm a member of. It's called the Placentia Community Group, just like that. Okay, and you'll see some photos that I just put up on behalf of Lorraine Chubbs. And if you go down the thread a little bit, you'll see that, like in December of this year, last year, sorry, there was trouble and stuff like that. No, and so anyway, Patty, thanks for taking my call. Hopefully, more people are encouraged by some guy like me calling in. Hopefully people with a lot more knowledge and know more about the history of that will call in and have a chat with you, Patty.
And they're more than welcome to do it. I appreciate the time this morning. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Patty. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, there we go. Let's keep going. Line number 4. Keith, you're on the air.
How are you doing, Paddy?
Great today. How about you?
I'm doing good. Thanks. I tried to call you yesterday, but I wanted to talk about light and power, the power bills.
Okay.
I got an assessment. It says it was comparing my home to other homes. I don't know. It just says comparing homes. It's 2x6. My walls are R40, Aragon windows, R60 in the attic. But my light bill went up. My power bill, went up. And so I called and asked them, how did my power bill go up by another $190? I was gone offshore. My wife and children were in my other home in St. John's. There was nobody here for the whole, out of the whole month, they were here 8 days. But I asked the missus, when I asked the missus, I said, how did my power bill go up? She said, what do you use for heat? I said, I have mini splits, top to bottom. I said, I have baseboards heaters that are not on. And she said, they're not on. I said, no, they're not on. They're on zero. We don't use them. She said, the words she told me, you're still burning electricity through your baseboard heaters. I said, how am I burning electricity? Well, she said, they're still working. I said, no, I asked her, I said, is this something you got to say so people are going to believe you? Because I said, I'm not believing you that my baseboard heaters are burning electricity while I'm not home and around zero. I said, why are they burning it now but not burning it in the summertime or in the spring of the year? And she couldn't answer me. Like, she's telling me a pile of stuff. I'm assuming she's either reading the script or told what to say or making up lies. Like, I know other people weren't even home for a whole month and their electricity bills went up like $250. So what is going on with all this BS that they're doing to people? Like, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer for you, but I'm bombarded with power bill concerns. And yes, we can acknowledge the bare facts that December was a pretty cold month and a really windy month. And, there was a 7% increase over the course of the summer. So some of those things are real. But people are having a really difficult time trying to see the justification for the whopping big increase in their bills this go around.
Like, my home compared to other homes, like I've R40 in the walls, the attic it's R60, and Aragon windows. Like, how's mine above average with other homes? I said, I don't understand it. I said, there's no explanation for it. I said, are you told to say that? She said, no, Mr. Kenny. I said, I'm not. I said, it doesn't make sense to tell me all them lies. Why it went up $190, $180 something dollars, almost $190? That doesn't make sense. How it go up, and nobody there was nobody home in the house for 16 days, right? And she said, well, your baseboard heaters kick in. I said, how can they kick in when they're on zero? And she just kept saying, yes, they kicks in. I called the electrician. And I asked him, do they kick in? He said, no, sir, they don't kick in. He said, I said, so how do you turn off your baseboard heaters? He said, go into your breaker, turn off your breaker. I said, that don't make sense. Right? It doesn't make sense. If there's a zero on it, you turn it to a zero. It doesn't kick in. And she kept telling me that's why it kicked in. Your baseboard heaters are burn electricity, even when they're on zero. Now, I don't know if you can ask someone else that question, an electrician or somebody that's more qualified than me.
I can, but just a very quick question. This is based out of ignorance. Can you actually turn your baseboard heaters to literally zero?
Yes.
You can?
Yeah, I'll look at it again. Hold on. Zero.
Yeah, because I think my thermostat, the lowest I can even turn mine is 3.5 or something like that. Now, maybe that's because of the digital thermostat I have, but I didn't know.
I got Dimplex there, DC Dimplex, zero.
Cool. Fair enough.
Right, and Honeywell, zero. It goes to a zero.
Yeah, now mine might be just set to not allow me to do it. Maybe there's a settings button that I can turn it to absolute zero, even though I'm not so sure I ever have. I suppose in the summertime we've tried. I'll have another look at it this afternoon when I get a minute, which I don't very often get one.
But that was a couple of days when I was talking to her. I went around. It was cold. I put my hand in all the heaters. There was no heat. So, like, I don't know if it's something that's rigged up, and we can say, yes, we're burning electricity while it's cold out, but it really doesn't make sense. And I can see, like, I can pay my electricity bill, but there's elderly people out there that don't know if their baseboard heaters are still cutting in. They're paying bills.
And they're paying through the nose. Just because of the time on the clock, Keith, you've had the last word, but I appreciate your time and your concerns. Thanks for doing it.
Okay, thanks.
All the best. Bye-bye. All right, good show today. Big thank you to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again on Monday morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy weekend. Talk Monday. Bye-bye.